Picture this. After 45 years of marriage in the lively city of Seattle, your partner suddenly asks for a full year of freedom. No contact, no boundaries, and the chance to explore new relationships. How would you feel? That's exactly the situation I found myself in. This is where it all began. Ben Carter, a successful CEO of his family's business, had just planned a surprise getaway to celebrate his long marriage with his wife, Sarah. But little did he know, everything was about to change. At 48, Ben had poured countless hours into growing the family company, juggling his responsibilities as a business leader while staying involved in Seattle's community. He built a stable, fulfilling life for his family and felt it was a time to celebrate. "Good evening, sweetheart," Ben said warmly, walking into the kitchen after a long day at work. Sarah looked up briefly from her seat at the table, her expression guarded, as if hiding something. "I thought you'd be home sooner," she commented casually, her eyes drifting toward the small red envelope in his hand. "What's with the red envelope? Valentine's Day was last week. I had some things to wrap up," Ben replied, setting down his briefcase. He tapped the envelope lightly. "I thought we could talk about this tonight." He sat down across from Sarah and noticed 2 glasses of red wine already poured. Beside her glass were a pen and a notebook, which stirred his curiosity. She seemed unusually distant, almost as though she was practicing what to say in her mind. "How was your day?" Sarah asked with a hint of coolness, as though her interest was half-hearted. "It was all right," Ben answered, his gaze shifting to the notebook beside her. "But I feel like this isn't about my day." Sarah exhaled deeply, as if summoning her courage. "You're right," she began. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, about my life, about us. I recently reconnected with my college friends from my sorority and planned a small reunion. I also lost 2 close friends to cancer in the past year. And now that the kids are gone, I'm feeling directionless." She paused and met his gaze. "That brings me to our marriage," she continued, with a steady voice. Ben softened as he listened, but inside, his mind raced. 45 years is a long time, Ben," Sarah said. "Some of my college friends are already on their 2nd or 3rd marriages." She leaned back, her tone growing frustrated. "Where does that leave us? What keeps us together? And maybe more importantly, what will keep us together in the years ahead?" Ben listened intently, absorbing her words, sensing a depth he hadn't anticipated. "I understand," he said slowly. "I've been reflecting, too. I know some men go through a midlife crisis, buying flashy cars or chasing younger women. I'm grateful I didn't take that route. I have a wonderful wife who keeps me grounded. So how can I make the next chapter of our lives even better?" Sarah gave him a faint smile. "That's one of the things I've always loved about you, Ben. You try to understand. Most men wouldn't." Then her tone shifted, steadying. "But I think I have a solution. All my life, I've been living under someone else's roof. First, it was my dad's house, then college dorms. Then we married, and I moved into this house, a wedding gift from your parents." Her voice grew more intense. "Being with you has been wonderful, but not always fulfilling. I've been the wife of a community leader, the wife of the CEO, the wife at every charity event. I've been in your shadow. You're the sun, Ben, and I'm just a satellite." Ben felt the weight of her words, a heaviness settling in his chest. "I need to step out of this orbit," Sarah said firmly. "If I don't, I'm afraid I'll lose myself completely." She took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to leave. I've thought this through. I need a break, some freedom, a full year without contact between us. I'll move out and live on my own, and during that time, we can both reflect." Ben was stunned, his mind racing to make sense of what he was hearing. "No contact at all?" he asked, disbelief evident in his tone. "I get that you need space, but no communication whatsoever? That seems a lot." Sarah nodded, her voice softening. "It'll be hard for both of us," she admitted. "I'll think of you every day. But after a year, we'll reconnect and decide what happens next." Ben looked at her, his carefully built life starting to come apart. He felt the sting of her words, though he struggled to voice his protests. Our lives are so intertwined, Sarah continued, her tone steady but resolved. How can we even begin to separate them? It'll feel like we're no longer husband and wife, she explained. She laid out her vision for the next year. We'd drift apart, each of us focusing on our own interests, discovering new hobbies and passions. Sarah explained with a surprising cheerfulness that she was excited to dive into some classes on women's studies and to pursue her personal growth. Think of it like a break, but without any bitterness or suspicion, she said, almost smiling. We'll still be a couple, just living separately for a year. Military families do this all the time, and it works for them. I listened, but with every word, a chill settled deeper into my heart. You mentioned wanting to live freely, seeing other people, I began cautiously, trying to keep my voice steady. Are you saying you're planning to date other men? Sarah's faint smile was unreadable. Maybe, she replied calmly. But I doubt anyone's going to be lining up to whisk me away for fancy dinners. My expression hardened. And if you do meet someone, does that mean you might, be intimate with them? My voice quivered as I tried to control the tremor in my chest. Sarah gave a casual shrug. Perhaps, she admitted unbothered. I don't see how else I'll truly understand independence. You're the only man I've ever been with, Ben. I want to feel like we're on equal ground. A hot wave of anger simmered beneath my skin. You seem to be overlooking something here. We're married. We took vows to share our lives, to stick together through thick and thin. I've honored that, and I expect you to do the same. Sarah waved off my concerns with a dismissive tone. Let's see where we are in a year, she said. We'll figure it out then. My patience was wearing thin. But there's no guarantee you'll come back to me, I replied, my voice rising. What if you fall in love with someone else? What if I'm not the one you want anymore? Stop being so dramatic, Ben, Sarah scoffed. It's just physical intimacy, nothing more. When we reconnect after the year, you'll be glad things can go back to normal. Don't turn this into something it's not. I'm just trying to grow, to gain confidence, and that'll make me a better partner for you. It felt like the ground was slipping from beneath me. A whole year without contact felt unbearably harsh. Why can't we work through this with therapy? I asked, grasping at any kind of compromise. Sarah shook her head resolutely. Talking won't cut it. I don't want to just talk about changing. I need to live it. If we don't take a real break, I'll never fully understand what it means to stand on my own 2 feet. I need to experience independence to come back with a clear mind. My voice dropped to a whisper. I'm not sure I can get through this. But Sarah's tone remained steady. Ben, I have to do this. Better to go through a year of discomfort and growth now than let resentment build over decades. When it's over, we'll be stronger. My heart sank. So when are you planning to move out? I asked, feeling hollow. I've already rented a place at Seaview Plaza for the year, she replied, as though it was simply another detail on her to-do list. I'll start moving out this weekend. It was like the floor had vanished beneath me. I searched for the right words. Can't we talk this through a bit more before you go through with such a big decision? Sarah reached over, gently placing her hand on mine. I appreciate that you're willing to talk about this, she said softly. I truly believe that, in the end, this will make us stronger. I love you for understanding. I pulled my hand away, feeling her words sting. You're giving me too much credit, I said painfully. I don't understand why you're doing this. It feels like I don't even have a say in this. Like what I want doesn't matter at all. Without another word, I got up, my head spinning. I'm overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start or how to deal with this. Maybe we just need to sleep on it and start figuring it out tomorrow. Are you coming to bed, or is this separation already beginning? Not yet, Ben, Sarah replied gently. I have a few more things to wrap up for the move, but I'll be up soon. With a heavy heart, I climbed the stairs to our room and collapsed onto the bed, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind spun with endless questions and a tangle of uncertainty. Later that night, Sarah slipped quietly into bed beside me, pressing herself gently against my side. She kissed my shoulder, and I felt the warmth of her tears against my skin as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Ben." "I'm sorry too, Sarah," I murmured, barely audible. "I love you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. After a quiet moment, I asked, "Is this the last time I'll hear you say that?" Her voice softened with a hint of hope. "I want this to make us better, not worse. I'm doing this to become a better wife, a better partner, and I will come back." The next morning, Ben woke up earlier than usual. For the first time in years, he didn't make Sarah her morning coffee. Instead, he left the house, got into his car, and sent a quick message to his friend Mike. He needed advice, someone who could help him make sense of this disaster unraveling around him. After he explained Sarah's plan, Mike listened carefully, then gave him a long, serious look. "Ben, honestly, it sounds like she already has someone else in mind but is waiting to see if it pans out. She's testing the waters. If it works with him, you'll just be her fallback. And if it doesn't, she'll come back acting like she's refreshed, ready to play the part of the perfect wife again. Right now, you're her safety net while she figures things out." "How do I stop her from treating me that way?" Ben asked, his stomach twisting. "Let her go, but don't just sit around waiting," Mike replied firmly. "Take control. The day she moves out, file for divorce. Make it clear it was her decision to leave. Divorce takes about 6 months. If, for some reason, you still want her back by then, you can always hold off on signing the final papers. That way, you're the one with the control," he continued. "And another thing, Ben, if she cheats and you take her back, it'll be easier for her to cross that line again. Stay calm. Don't lose your cool or start shouting, even if things get heated. In court, keeping your composure is everything. Act like you're fine with her plan." Leaving Carter Motors, where he just bought a sleek, black convertible on impulse, Ben felt a rebellious thrill rise inside him. If things were going this way, he might as well enjoy something out of it, he joked to Mike, grinning as he climbed into his new car. When he got home that evening, Sarah was already there, pacing around the living room with anxiety etched across her face. "Ben, where have you been?" she asked, her voice tinged with worry. "I missed you this morning. I've been thinking about everything we talked about last night, and can we discuss it some more?" Ben kept his voice even. "I needed some time alone to think. I took a drive to clear my head, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting, too. I could take tomorrow off if you want to go over things," Sarah offered, her voice softening. "I know I shook things up for you last night. I'm worried about you, about us." A flicker of resentment sparked in Ben as she suddenly seemed to want his comfort despite her own drastic decision. He took a steadying breath and replied quietly, "I need more time, Sarah. I have to process this separation and try to understand what it actually means for us. I'll be in my study, doors shut, phone off. Why don't we keep our usual dinner time? I'll handle everything tonight. You don't need to cook or clean." Sarah nodded, looking thankful for the offer, though a layer of tension remained between them. Later, as they sat down to eat, an uneasy silence stretched across the table. Sarah eventually broke it by talking about her plans for her new apartment and the classes she wanted to take. "By the way, would it be all right if I took some of our furniture with me?" she asked, her tone hopeful. Ben gave a slight nod. "Sure, but I doubt it'll all fit in a 1,200 square foot place. What do you plan to do with the rest?" When Sarah suggested leaving some pieces behind, Ben shook his head firmly. "If you're moving out, take everything you'll need. I don't want this house to be a fallback plan in case things don't work out." Sarah's excitement visibly dimmed. "So you're fine with me taking the bed, but now you're making a fuss about the other stuff," she snapped, frustration flaring. "What am I supposed to do if I can't leave them here?" "If you want independence, then act like it," Ben replied coolly. "You chose to live on your own, so why lean on me now? There are storage units all over town. Rent one." Their conversation quickly escalated into a tense back and forth about the logistics of her move. Eventually, Ben decided to be direct. "Sarah, since you first brought this up, I've been thinking. If I'm going to be without a wife for a while, maybe I should start considering a new path for myself, too." Sarah stared at him, shocked. "What new path?" "Well," he said calmly, maybe I should start thinking about meeting someone else. Someone younger, someone who wants the life we've built, rather than walking away from it." "Wait a minute!" Sarah's voice rose, indignant. "I'm doing this to become a better version of myself for you. You're overreacting. No need to start talking about seeing other people." Ben's voice hardened. "I don't agree with your plan either, but you made it clear that my opinion doesn't matter. You're going to do what you want, regardless of what it means for me. I'm tired of having a wife who wants to be with other men, so while you're off exploring, I'll be doing the same. Let's see what the next year brings." The argument reached its boiling point, and eventually, Sarah stormed out, leaving Ben alone. A red envelope with their anniversary travel plans lay unopened on the coffee table, a quiet reminder of what used to be. In the following weeks, Ben threw himself into work and fully embraced his new freedom. He redecorated the house, taking down family photos and replacing them with framed jazz posters and memorabilia from his favorite sports teams. He started grilling steaks on the patio, blasting jazz at full volume, things Sarah had always disapproved of. Meanwhile, Sarah settled into her new apartment at Seaside Towers and enrolled in a women's studies course at a local community college. Although she initially enjoyed this new phase of independence, her excitement started to wane as she felt the distance growing with their children, who were confused and hurt by her choices. Her calls went unanswered, and family dinners became a thing of the past. As time passed, both Ben and Sarah found themselves navigating this unfamiliar territory. Although he hadn't wanted to, Ben went to the court-mandated marriage counseling sessions. The therapist tried to delve into the reasons behind their separation, prompting Sarah to talk about her need to rediscover herself. Ben, though, remained resolute. Her decision to see other men had crossed a line he couldn't overlook. During this time, Ben's social life began to shift as well. He spent time with two women he met through mutual friends. Laura, an art curator who had lost her husband, impressed Ben with her creativity and warmth. Meanwhile, Rachel, a former triathlete turned real estate agent, was down-to-earth and easy to talk to. Although Ben enjoyed their company, he chose to stay celibate, waiting until the divorce was finalized before pursuing anything serious. On the other hand, Sarah embraced her freedom wholeheartedly, spending weekends out with her recently divorced friends and enjoying the attention from other men. She felt free and untethered, but a chance meeting at a downtown bar with a charming man named Jake led to unexpected consequences. Their connection was instant, and as the weeks went by, Jake became more than just a casual friend, blurring the lines of Sarah's so-called year of freedom. As the year drew to a close, the tension between Ben and Sarah was palpable. Sarah seemed convinced that Ben would welcome her back without hesitation, confident their marriage would fall back into place. But Ben had changed. Her betrayal had left a deep wound, and he no longer felt open to reconciliation. The breaking point came when their eldest daughter, Emily, stumbled upon photos of Sarah with Jake, confirming Ben's suspicions. The discovery shattered any lingering connection between Sarah and her family. The day they were scheduled to meet at the lawyer's office, Sarah arrived first, dressed in a new outfit, projecting confidence to mask her anxiety. She was holding on to hope, hoping to persuade Ben to give her one more chance. Ben arrived a little later, walking in calmly and setting a familiar red envelope on the table between them. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice neutral. After a brief greeting, the lawyers got down to business, presenting the divorce papers for them to sign. Once the paperwork was done, Ben turned to Sarah, his expression unreadable. "Is there anything you'd like to say?" he asked, his voice steady, though completely devoid of warmth. Sarah took a deep breath. "This year has been so hard without you by my side," she began, her voice softening. "But through it all, I feel like I've grown. I've learned a lot about myself, and I've come to understand what our marriage truly means. I need to thank you, Ben, for giving me the space to reflect. Now, more than ever, I'm committed to us. I promise you'll never regret giving me another chance. I'll prove my loyalty for the rest of my life." Ben's expression stayed firm, giving away nothing. When she finished, he replied in a calm tone, "Trust is the foundation of everything, Sarah. Our vows were built on loyalty. Without trust, there's no love. That's why we're here, signing these papers. I can only hope we'll be honest with ourselves moving forward. He paused, holding her gaze. Over this past year, I spent time with other women. But I never crossed certain boundaries. His eyes held hers. Can you say the same? Have you been faithful to me? The question caught Sarah off guard. She blinked, momentarily stunned, then quickly replied, Yes, of course, I've been faithful. Ben's expression hardened as he reached for the red envelope, pulled out a photograph, and placed it in front of her. The picture showed Sarah passionately embracing Jake in a bar. Is this your idea of loyalty? He asked, his tone sharp. Sarah's face turned crimson with embarrassment as she stammered, It was just a moment, it meant nothing. I didn't cheat. Ben didn't respond right away. Instead, he pulled out another photograph, one even more compromising. Sarah's eyes widened in horror as she looked at it. Where did you get this? She asked, panic slipping into her voice. Were you spying on me? Ben's voice trembled with restrained anger. Our daughter Emily's friend took these photos. She was at the same bar. Emily found out, and it was humiliating for her to see her mother acting like that. Do you have any idea what that did to her? His voice softened but was heavy with disappointment. She had to endure the shame. Can you imagine what went through her mind? As Ben's words sank in, Sarah's face grew pale, tears gathering in her eyes. Ben's voice rose, barely controlled. You wonder why the kids won't take your calls? They've seen more than you realize. Casting a glance at his lawyer, Ben signed the divorce papers and pushed them across the table. File them, he said firmly. Sarah's voice took on a desperate edge as she tried to explain, Ben, it meant nothing. There was no love involved. It was just physical. I didn't think it would come to this. Please don't do this. Ben's gaze turned colder, his eyes unwavering. That's what makes it worse, Sarah, he replied, calm and resolute. The fact that it meant nothing to you, but you still went through with it. Do you even realize how deeply that hurts? Sarah's shoulders slumped, the weight of her choices bearing down on her. Please, she pleaded, her voice small, I want to be your wife again. I promise I'll be faithful from now on. I don't want to end up alone. Don't push me away. I beg you, forgive me. But her words didn't reach him. Ben had already made up his mind. Without another glance, he stood up and walked out, her pleas fading as he left the room. That evening, Ben sat alone at home, nursing a glass of whiskey and reflecting on the long road that had brought him to this point. He thought about the doubts, the heartache, and the quiet strength he'd found in himself over the past year. Despite the pain, he felt a strange sense of closure, realizing he had finally let go. The next morning, he ignored a flood of calls from Sarah and instead focused on reconnecting with the people who had been there for him. His friend Tom, Lisa, and even Rachel, who reached out with words of encouragement. As winter settled in, blanketing Seattle in a soft layer of snow, Ben began to carve out a new path for himself. A few weeks later, Lisa, sensing the challenges Ben had been through, invited him to an art exhibit. They spent the evening enjoying each other's company, sharing laughter, and rediscovering the comfort in simple moments. Ben found warmth in Lisa's kindness, and slowly, their friendship blossomed into something more. Meanwhile, Sarah struggled to adapt to her new reality. She'd moved into a smaller apartment in a quieter part of the city. Financially strained by the divorce, she faced difficulties at every turn. Her attempts to reconnect with her children were met with silence, their wounds too fresh for reconciliation. One day, after several absences from work, Sarah's boss at the marketing firm pulled her aside. Sarah, we need someone reliable here. I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. The weight of her situation pressed down on her, leaving her isolated and consumed by regret. The friends she'd once gone out with drifted away, and her financial independence crumbled. The choices that had once filled her with excitement and freedom now left her alone. What a fool I'd been, she whispered, staring at the empty walls of her apartment, realizing she had thrown away a life she could never get back. As the seasons changed, Ben found a new peace in his life. What had once been filled with turmoil now settled into a calm, steady rhythm. He spent time with his daughter Emily, who slowly began to heal from the pain of her parents' separation. His friendship with Lisa deepened, and together they began building new memories, grounded in trust and mutual respect. On the anniversary of their separation, Sarah received the finalized divorce papers in the mail, the official end to a chapter she'd once believed would last forever. She signed them with a heavy heart, understanding that the love she had once taken for granted was now only a memory. In one last effort to make amends, Sarah wrote a heartfelt letter to Ben, expressing her remorse and hoping, at the very least, for his forgiveness. She sent it, knowing he might never respond but wanting him to know she was truly sorry. When Ben received the letter, he read it quietly, feeling a pang of sadness for the life they had once shared. He folded it carefully, placed it in a drawer, and closed it, leaving the past where it belonged. With each passing day, Ben found more joy in his new life, embracing a sense of renewed purpose and clarity. Surrounded by the family and friends who had stood by him through it all, he looked forward to the future, content with the choices he'd made and the valuable lessons he'd learned along the way. Thank you for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Cheating Stories channel. Your support means a lot and helps us continue creating new stories daily.